Good morning, good evening, or good night, whichever one it is for you, whichever one it is. I'm very glad you're here to join me for this week's video, which is gonna be a book haul. I have been acquiring so many books. I usually don't buy this many books, but something about the last months of each year makes me so just in the mood to buy things. And this is kind of an accumulation of all of the books I've been acquiring over the past 3 months, probably. It's mainly 3 months. And the reason why I really wanted to talk about this is, first of all, I'm really excited about these books, but more importantly, most of them were actually gifted by you to me, which is insane. I still can't wrap my head around that fact. That is insane to me. I don't know, it makes me feel so incredibly happy. So I really wanted to talk about those books specifically. Also, in case you have sent me a book that I'm not talking about in this video, I've either already talked about it or I'm going to talk about it in my wrap-up, because in that case I've already read it. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. The first 3 books were sent to me by Muachi, thank you so much. They are Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, and Pride and Prejudice, also by Jane Austen. These are all in the Wordsworth collector's editions, which I just adore. I collect the Jane Austen books in them, and these were the only ones I've been missing. I have actually already read Pride and Prejudice and Northanger Abbey, but Mansfield Park I have not yet read, so I'm really excited about owning that one finally, specifically. Now my collection is complete. That's so satisfying, and I was so happy when I received these. And yeah, just thank you so much. You also wrote me the sweetest notes ever, so that was very highly appreciated. I'm just gonna put them right here so you can see them. And the same kind person also sent me Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, which is a book I don't think you can be in the book space without hearing about, because everyone's been talking about this book. It's supposed to be like the Western novel. I don't know if it spans several generations or if you're just following these people as they're journeying through the West in America. You can tell I know barely anything about this book, but I know that it's supposed to feature incredible characters. It's the kind of story that is perfect for people who love character-driven stories, which that is literally describing my book taste. And again, I've just been hearing about it absolutely everywhere, and I have been getting increasingly more interested in reading it. So I am so grateful to now have it, because that means I can literally pick it up whenever. I do think, however, I'm gonna save it for the summer, probably, because Western just screams summer to me. I don't know, I think that's the preferred time to read that for me. So yeah, we'll see. That was Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Then from Daniel, kind Daniel, I received Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury, which will be my next Bradbury, because I absolutely fell in love with that man's writing. And I've heard if you love Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is by far my favorite of the 2 I've read by him, and I've heard this is the one to read if you love that one, because it's kind of similar in terms of the writing, because Something Wicked This Way Comes is also kind of stream of consciousness. It's very poetic, and I hear this is the same. I'm very interested to find out if that's actually the case and in which ways they differ. Sadly, I can't be of any help. I don't know anything about this book other than I'm sure I'm gonna love it, because Ray Bradbury's just a genius. Foster by Claire Keegan, which was gifted to me by Matt. Thank you so much. It came with the note, "This book broke me." So yeah, I'm very excited to have a book break me, because I know Claire Keegan is fantastic. I've read Small Things Like These and I absolutely loved it. Cannot wait to read this one as well, because those 2 are the ones that are talked about most in terms of her work, I'm pretty sure. This is incredibly short. I think it's only 90 pages or so. Yeah, about 90 pages. And for a book of that short of a length, to be able to break someone, that means it must be quite good, doesn't it? It's gonna be really hard for me to wait to read this one, but I think I want to read it in the summer as well, because I've heard it takes place in the deep summer in the heat, and I just love reading a book during the time it takes place, and I think that just kind of adds to the experience in a way. I'm envisioning myself going to the woods and reading this in one sitting, in the woods, hearing the birds chirp, in the sunshine, in the heat. That would just be amazing. I think that's my ideal idea for how I want to experience this book. Foster by Claire Keegan. Then an anonymous stranger kindly gifted to me the book of Chuang-Tzu. Chuang-Tzu was one of the founders of Taoism. Taoism is like my whole identity, basically. I think the Tao Te Ching, the writing of Taoism, is the most wise thing that's ever been written. It's like my little personal own Bible. I adore Taoism to my core, and if I were to ever subscribe to any sort of belief, Taoism is it. I think if everyone were a Taoist, the world would be at peace. The wisest way of conducting yourself in the world ever. And to try to attain Taoism is something that I don't think is actually possible, but I think trying to do so is a very good way of spending your life. And so I cannot wait to read the book of Chuang-Tzu, who again was one of the founders of Taoism. He was apparently very against Confucianism, which is interesting. He's supposed to be entertaining and wise. It's also illustrated, which I absolutely adore. I don't know if that's a thing for every Chinese classic, but I know the Romance of the Three Kingdoms has illustrations as well, which I just loved. I think it enhances the experience so much. The history nerd in me will also be very happy. I expect. I think there's nothing better as a reader than knowing you're gonna absolutely adore a book before you've ever picked it up, and this one is one where I'm sure that's gonna be the case. So yeah, that is the book of Chuang-Tzu. Sanshiro by Natsume Soseki, which was a gift from Edwin. Thank you so much. I have never ever read anything by Natsume Soseki, which is like a crime, considering I adore Japanese literature. This is one of the greats of Japanese classic literature. There are so many books by him that I'm so interested in reading, but I'm kind of really happy that this is the first I'm gonna pick up. This is about a graduate student living in the countryside who gets a job in Tokyo, in a big city. And it's about this country bumpkin getting immersed into city life and just being absolutely, I don't know, flabbergasted, I suppose. It kind of reads like the exact antithesis of Bochan, which is also what I really want to read by Soseki, which is about someone who originally lived in a city and then moves to the countryside, I think to become a teacher or something. So I think those two will be really fun to read together. I'm so glad this is gonna be my first Soseki ever, and I'm certain it won't be my last. That was Natsume Soseki's Sanshiro. And then Lindsay sent me the Iliad and the Odyssey in the Emily Wilson translation. I've read the Iliad and I've read the Odyssey, but in different translations. And I've just been hearing so many great things about her translations, Emily Wilson's translations of these two books. She is a Greek scholar, so her translation is scholarly, but it also takes a bit more liberty to make the stories more emotional, I think. I'm not quite sure. I haven't read them yet, but I have been thinking about nothing but reading those two. Particularly, I absolutely adore the Iliad. The Odyssey is, of course, incredibly entertaining and beautiful as well, but the Iliad has my heart. And to be able to experience those stories or those epic poems in several different translations and then be able to compare is just the coolest thing ever. I plan on maybe one day I'll have read all of the translations there are of these books. That would be kind of incredible. Also, can we just appreciate how absolutely beautiful these books are? And with that, we're at the end of the section of gifted books. Can you believe it? All of these books were gifted to me by you. Wow, I can't believe it. Thank you so much, guys. And then just to give a quick explanation. This row of books right here that you're seeing, they're the Penguin Popular Classic editions, which I love. There are some books in this edition that I've been wanting to buy for so long. It just kind of happened that I stumbled upon all of these books at the same time. I just could not resist when I saw these being advertised. The Penguin Popular Classic edition of Three Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome, which I believe is just about three men and a dog deciding they're kind of sick of daily life and going on a boat trip. It's supposed to be absolutely funny and entertaining and wholesome. I need more just wholesome, fun low stakes books in my life. And I think this is the perfect one. And I'm so glad I found this one. I've been looking for it for quite some time, so now it's finally in my hands. That being said, I then also went on to buy Three Men on the Bummel, also by Jerome K. Jerome, which is the sequel to that. And I think it's kind of the exact same principle, except this time they're not on a boat, they're on a bummel. I could say the exact same thing about this one that I've said about that one, so I won't do that. Wholesome, fun, exciting, cannot wait. Also, cover, great, absolutely great. Look at them. Don't they just look perfect together? I love having one designated audiobook per month, and somehow Charles Dickens just kind of feels perfect for that. So I decided my next one for February, I'm pretty sure, is gonna be Little Dorrit. This is in insanely good condition. It's basically a new book, which I could not believe. I feel so lucky about that. I think it's kind of satire, but social criticism. I think it's about the prison system or the justice system. How there's like one character who gets imprisoned because of debt, but then he will only be able to get out of prison if his debt is repaid. But how could you ever earn money in prison? And so it's kind of about the corruption of that and how ludicrous that whole institution is. The reason I wanted this one specifically is because I read and absolutely adored The Cider House Rules last year. John Irving was very influenced by Charles Dickens's writing. In The Cider House Rules, there's 3 books mentioned constantly: Jane Eyre, Little Dorrit, and David Copperfield. I have read Jane Eyre, I'm currently reading David Copperfield, and I really also want to read Little Dorrit, because for me one of the most fun things is if I love a book and that book is very influenced by certain other books, or certain other books are just kind of themes within them, that is kind of enough for me to really want to read those books. That way I end up experiencing books and picking up books that I wouldn't normally go for if I hadn't read those other ones. I don't know if that makes sense, but I really appreciate that when a book opens up all of these doors to read other books. This is one of those. I don't think I would have picked up Little Dorrit anytime soon if it hadn't been mentioned in Cider House Rules so much. Now I can't wait, and I think it's going to be such a fun experience just reading this or listening to it throughout the month. That is Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens, once again in the absolutely gorgeous Penguin Popular Classics edition. This is The Aspern Papers by Henry James, because I love Henry James. The Aspern Papers, as far as I know, is about this man, he's the main character, wanting to acquire the writings of a writer that's died. I don't know if they're poems or if they're diary entries or stories, but he really wants to acquire these works at all costs. There's people involved with the writer who are trying to keep him from acquiring those books. I've heard it's very entertaining. Henry James is an absolute genius of a writer most of the time, at least. It's going to be a beautiful little palette cleanser, because a little short tiny book once in a while is always good. I'm particularly interested in finding out if this is one of his more funny works or one of his more serious works. That was The Aspern Papers by Henry James. This is Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh, which I own. I've read this book. I adore these editions also. They're also vintage penguins, but the ones with this spine, they feel like papery. I don't know, they feel very interesting, but I think they're so pretty, specifically if they're illustrated like that. And I've looked into it, and there's a lot of Evelyn Waugh books in this edition specifically, and I would absolutely love to own them all. And this is what I want to get to. I found The Loved One by Evelyn Waugh in this edition. It's not in the best condition, but it's absolutely perfect. It smells very interesting. It smells like a used book. So happy I now own it, because I really want to read more Evelyn Waugh. And the fun thing about this one is it's been annotated by someone. Can you see that? Someone's written in it. And I love that so much, because it means I don't just get to experience the story itself, but I get to experience someone else's experience with the story. I think that's the coolest thing ever. I'm gonna read it extremely slowly just for that. I just had to buy it when I saw that. It's so cool. That is The Loved One. I have absolutely no clue what this is about. I refuse to read the blurbs for books that are this short, because I want to go in blind. I just know this man is a very good writer. So this will surely be very good as well, won't it? And then I'm gonna show these all at the same time because they're all by the same author and I don't want to repeat myself that much. Piccadilly Gym by P.G. Wodehouse. Jeeves in the Offing, also by P.G. Wodehouse. The Mating Season, guess what, by P.G. Wodehouse. And The Path Hunters and Other Stories by P.G. Wodehouse. This is a short story collection. These are all obviously by the same author. And I saw these editions. This one, I did not realize it was going to be this big, but hey, the stories sound very interesting. They're about, like, they're school stories taking place in school, about school classmates that are getting up to all sorts of things. It's supposed to be very nice. And then these guys, I just absolutely love these editions. They're kind of similar in feel and in look to the Evelyn Waugh ones that I just talked about. And I think they look so great on the shelves. I love how they're illustrated in the covers. Nothing is as fun as reading a mass market paperback, especially if they're secondhand, if they're vintage like this. There's no prettier books than those, in my opinion. P.G. Wodehouse is an author I've been so interested in reading something from. I didn't know where to start because that man has written like what feels like hundreds of books. He was famous for funny and wholesome, pleasant stories. They're supposed to be great escapes. I have no clue what they're about. I'm very excited to find out though. Again, just like with 3 Men in a Boat and 3 Men on a Bummel, these are just gonna be pleasant palate cleansers for when I want to read some more uplifting stories because again, I just want to do more of that this year. I want to take some care of my brain's health and actually make an effort to loosen up my reading because there's quite a few quite heavy books that I'm planning on reading this year. And so having some of these kinds of books as well will just be very nice, I think. Those were all of the P.G. Wodehouse books I bought. And then one more vintage book, second-hand book, Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons, which another little tangent. These Penguin Classic editions, they're also older ones. I'm pretty sure they're not in print anymore, but I might be wrong. The ones with the silver spine. I think they are so pretty and I really want to collect those too, and there are some of them that I'm really interested in reading, so who knows. But this one, Cold Comfort Farm, on the back it says very probably the funniest book ever written. That is quite high praise. I do have to admit I bought this for the cow. I love cows, and if there's a cow on a cover, I'm gonna buy the book. It's just, it had to be mine. I needed it. The cow, just look at her. Look at her, doesn't she just look adorable? This is about a woman who moves to a farm, maybe for a holiday, maybe for a job. I don't have any clue. But the farm people are supposed to be very interesting people. It's kind of, as far as I know, more like satirical humor. Whatever kind of comedy this is, I think it's gonna be great. I also know that there is another book, I believe it's called Christmas at Cold Comfort Farm, which is like the characters in this story, the setting of the story just taking place during Christmas. When I've read that, I can then read that in the winter time, which that will be awesome. I love that. So yeah, another little motivator, but I will not need a motivator. I would love to pick this up immediately, but once again, this is kind of another one of those books that feel like they need to be read at least in the spring. That was Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. I'm gonna start just putting them here because I'm really scared the stack's gonna fall. I feel like the absolutely luckiest person in life because for Christmas I asked for this and I actually received it. Piranesi, the Folio Society edition of Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Look at that. If you've read the book, can you appreciate how absolutely brilliant this design is? I cannot get over this. If you don't know, Piranesi is like one of my absolute favorite books of all time. It's a soul book. It's one of the books that like define me as a reader, as a person. This edition is so beautiful. I only collect special editions of this kind of books that I really consider my all-time favorite, absolutely best of the best books, and this is one of those. And then I also commission artists to illustrate the story. I'm just gonna show you one which I think is my favorite probably. This one, and then do you see Piranesi up there? I think that's just so amazing. I can't believe I own this now. I've been wanting it for so long and now it's mine. And every time I see it on my special edition shelf, I just get so happy. And then I gifted myself with the 1995 edition of Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, obviously also by Folio Society. This is out of print and I have been wanting to buy this book basically ever since I've read it, because Don Quixote became an instant favorite of mine. Just look at this. Just look at it for a second. It became an instant favorite. I think, first of all, sorry, I'm all over the place. I just think the way this is illustrated is the story of Don Quixote. It is so apt. I don't know who came up with that. I think it's brilliant. I specifically really wanted the Folio Society edition because I don't think there's a more beautiful edition of the book out there. It's also illustrated, and once again, it's illustrated in the most fitting way. There are these ink drawings. They basically look more like scribbles than anything, and they have these like sepia kind of color tones in them. Isn't that amazing? It was so difficult to track down this edition in an acceptable condition. This is basically new. It's been read, but I don't care about that at all. It's not damaged in any way. It's perfect, and it was very reasonably priced. And it's one of those things where it felt so serendipitous because at the end of the year, like 2025 is one of those, it's one of the hardest years I've ever had, but it's also one of those years I think I'm the proudest of, because I did so many things in that year that I never thought I'd be confident enough to do. I wanted to buy myself something to commemorate that. And then at the end of the year, I finally found a version of this edition that was in perfect condition, and that just felt so serendipitous because I thought, what better gift to give myself to commemorate this year than like what the best book I read in that year. It felt like destiny. This book was meant to be mine. I love that I own this now. That was Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote. And then I bought Called by the Hills, A Home in the Himalaya by Anuradha Roy. I think this is non-fiction. It's about this author, which I think is the author of this story. It might be fictional, I don't know, but she moves with her husband to the Himalaya, and it's about them making a life for themselves there. It's about the connection they develop to the land there, to nature, and to the animals, I think. It just sounded perfect. This is a new release. I pre-ordered this, which is crazy. I never do that. But when I read this, I just needed to have it. And I think I'm gonna pick it up next. It's gonna be my next read. It's illustrated. I did not know, but sometimes it's in sketches. This is a charcoal sketch. And then there's also watercolor paintings in it. It feels like the perfect book for me. And I had to have it. Now I have it. I'm so happy I do. That is Called by the Hill. Then I bought these books. They are 4 books by the same author once again. A Shining by Jon Fosse, Alice at the Fire by Jon Fosse, Morning and Evening by Jon Fosse, and Scenes from a Childhood, of course also by Jon Fosse. This is obviously a result of the obsession I developed with that man's writing after reading 3 of his books, Septology, Melancholy, and Velm. In December, I fell in love with his writing and I just needed all of his books. These are not quite all of them, but they're most of them. I own most of them now, at least. They're all in the beautiful Fitzcarraldo editions. I don't know anything about any of these books except Scenes from a Childhood. I think that's non-fiction more. It's impressions from Jon Fosse's own childhood, but of course in an artistic form. Knowing what I know about Jon Fosse, they're gonna be stream of consciousness, abstract, poetic, beautiful little vignettes of human life. So symbolic, so connected to nature, spiritual probably. He's an author that I'm so excited to discover more from, because so far everything I've read by him has been an absolutely instant success, and I don't expect this to be anything else. The Hotel New Hampshire by John Irving, because once again I've already talked about how I absolutely fell in love with the Cider House Rules by him, and he's so interesting because none of his stories seem the same. He's written quite a few books. And no matter which book I look at, I find them all so compelling. This one was the one I was most excited about picking up next because it's about a boy. His father buys a hotel, so this boy grows up in a hotel. And it's about the crazy people that come to the hotel and just all these shenanigans they get up to. Humorous, but also wholesome, kind of sad at points, probably tragic too, because John Irving is just, he has such a talent for interweaving every facet of humanity into stories that feel like they have so much substance, but at the same time, like they're so wholesome. They're wholesome books, but with substance behind them. I think that's how you should describe John Irving's work. I did also buy A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. As far as I know, it's about Owen Meany, the main character, who as a child, while playing baseball, accidentally kills someone, then starts to believe he's God's instrument, and I believe he goes on to serve in the Vietnam War. And I don't know how these things are connected, but it sounds incredibly interesting. It sounds like something that is gonna be very moralistic, very existential. Those were The Hotel New Hampshire and A Prayer for Owen Meany. A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole, which is, I think, funny. I think it's funny and it's kind of unique. Once again, on my mission of buying more funny and uplifting books. I don't quite know if this is gonna be uplifting. It kind of also sounds like something that could be very, very witty social critique, but I might be completely wrong here. Again, I did not read any blurbs or any summaries. I just found the title very fun, and one of you recommended it to me saying it's a very unique book. So that sounds cool. I want to find out why. That's why I bought it. A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I read and loved A Man Called Ove last year. I don't know if any of his other books are gonna compare, but I am sure curious to see. And Anxious People is the one I think most people know of. Anxious People is the one I hear everyone talk about. I think it starts off with the main characters going to an apartment viewing and then becoming hostages. It's kind of a hostage situation, but also funny. And I don't know how that works, but let's find out. Why don't we? Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. And then this was actually a gift for my birthday, but I don't think I've talked about it yet, so I'm gonna show it to you now. The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivy. Is that how you pronounce her name? I don't know. I think it's a beautiful name, by the way. This is about a couple. It's kind of based on Russian folklore, as far as I know. The couple can't have children, and so one day they decide to build a snowman, like a snow child, basically. And the next day, the snow child is trampled, but there's a little girl running around, a real life actual girl. And it's about the relationship that this couple develops to that child, to that girl. And it's based on a certain specific story of Russian folklore. This is the book that you immediately get recommended if you say you love The Bear and the Nightingale, which is in the top 3 of any series I've ever read. It's a brilliant series in my opinion. I think I'm gonna really love this. I was hoping to read it in December, but I didn't get to it. And I think I'm gonna keep it for next December because I think this is one that I really want to make sure I make the reading experience as good as possible, and I think that can only really be achieved if I read it in December. And I'm kind of happy about that because I mean I have an entire year to look forward to this now. So yeah, that was all. Quite a few books, huh? Once again, thank you so much to all of the kind people who have been buying me books. Whenever I get them in the mail, that makes my entire day. Sometimes they arrive when I'm having a really bad day, and getting these books, it instantly changes my mood. I don't know, I must have been a saint in my past life or something. How do I deserve that much kindness? Thank you so much once again. And so yeah, with that, we're gonna say bye-bye. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're having a nice day. If you are not having a nice day, that is fine too. We're thinking about you either way. And I'm already looking forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.